so much.
Thank you so much, Todd. You know, that song that we just heard, some people call it the Coast Salish anthem. You know, and some say it's actually the real anthem of this land, because it's an anthem that comes from the people, or the traditional peoples of this land. And I think it's really fitting that we sang that song here today, because really what we're talking about is a relationship between nations. You know, here we are outside the Chinese Consulate. You know, this is the representation of the government of China here in Canada. And, you know, we're talking about building a gateway to the Asia Pacific. You know, this gateway pipeline that's such a big topic of conversation right now. Some people call it the gateway to global warming. You know, but this gateway is part of a trade plan. It's part of a plan for Canada to expand its balance of trade with the Asia Pacific region. You know, and as a country, of course, we need to have relationships with all the other countries in the world. And if we're ever going to, you know, get serious about sustainability, we have to talk seriously about our relationship with China. It's really the elephant in the room in a lot of ways. It's the biggest country in the world. It's the fastest growing country in the world. And there's a tremendous amount of demand for our oil coming from all over the world, but particularly from China. But the problem is that the direction that we're talking about heading right now is just fundamentally unsustainable. And I think everybody who looks seriously at this issue, even just for a little while, you know, understands that. And when the government of China is meeting with the government of Canada, and our representative, Stephen Harper, is there right now on our behalf, he brought with him not a delegation of people representing the people of Canada. He didn't bring with him the First Nations of this land, many of which have never ceded their right to this land, and have made it very clear that they don't want this pipeline to go through. And in fact, what he's brought with him is a lot of representatives of the oil industry. In fact, the CEO of that very company, Enbridge, that wants to build that so-called gateway pipeline, is part of a delegation right now in China with our Prime Minister. So that's why we're here today right now. We're here because we want to make sure that the people of China, the government of China, and the people of the world know that Stephen Harper isn't there talking on our behalf right now. Who here agrees with me about that? You know, we really do need to work together as a global community, and we need to learn from the indigenous teachings, from the ways that people have been able to live on this land sustainably for a long, long time. And the same is true in China. Many people in China have lived sustainably for a long time. Much of what we're seeing that's destructive right now is kind of a new thing. You know, and there's many people, you know, in all countries who want sustainability, who want a good way of life, who want social justice for everyone. You know, so I think it's up to us to have that conversation. You know, so it's fitting that we're here with folks from the Occupy movement, because the Occupy movement is a social movement of people all around the world that isn't coming from the top down. It's coming from the bottom up. And some say that movement's even moving to China. It might be hard to imagine, but, you know, if we really are serious about sustainability, and if we're really serious about social justice, you know, we need to be part of that conversation. We can't just ignore the elephant in the room. You know, China is this massive, massive force on the world stage, and we need to have a relationship with these people. So part of what we've done here today is we've actually tried to start that conversation, not in a government-to-government way, but in a people-to-people way. It might seem silly, but one of the things we've done is we've actually just started to collect pictures on Facebook. You know, as the world is more and more connected by the web, you know, it really takes the power out of the control of the hands of the folks who have the most money and the most influence. It gives us the ability to speak for ourselves and communicate with one another directly around the world. So this might just be a small number of us here, but we're part of a much larger social movement for climate justice, for climate solutions that are sustainable, that are ethical, that are equitable, that consider the rights of all human beings, and that's just fundamentally important for everyone on planet Earth. So I'm really proud to be here with all of you who are part of that movement. Everybody give yourself a hand for being part of that movement. You know, we're facing a number of these pipelines here in BC, but it's not the only one. Just recently, there was also a huge pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline, that was proposed in the United States, and everybody said it was a done deal. In fact, many of the environmentalists who were considering getting involved in a campaign to try to stop that pipeline had second thoughts. You know, they said, well, it's just too big. These companies are too powerful. Maybe we can't stop it. maybe we should just focus on lobbying our governments. But what happened was hundreds of people got involved, and then thousands of people got involved, and then tens of thousands of people got involved. And it started out with a few people getting arrested outside of the White House, and not anybody was paying attention. And then a few more people got arrested, and then a few more people did, and then all of a sudden the entire world was paying attention. And then after a short period of time, about 10,000 people surrounded the White House holding hands. And I think it was only a couple of weeks later that the president of what some people call the most powerful country on earth said no to that project. He said, we're not going to approve that project. And of course, there's always the possibility that it'll come back. But we have won a major victory against a major oil pipeline that would drastically expand one of the most unsustainable sources of fossil fuels left on planet Earth. So I think we should all give a hand to the people who've actually been part of that movement. You know, there's been a lot of talk recently about activists in Canada, being part of a radical movement, and that we're taking money from foreign interests, which is crazy, really. When you look at what's actually going on, I mean, these pipelines and these companies, many of the folks who are with our Prime Minister right now are from big American corporations, and they're meeting with big Chinese corporations. We're talking about the richest people on earth, many of them from the oil industry, who are basically setting foreign policy or setting the policies that affect all of us worldwide. And that really needs to stop. These policies need to come from the people. And people do stand up, and they do win victories when people stand up, not just here, but in China and elsewhere in the world as well. And we need to have the courage to stand up when something seems too difficult or too big or too impossible. And we need to recognize when we have victories, like we did with the Keystone Pipeline, and like we're going to with the Gateway Pipeline, and like we're going to with the Kinder Morgan Pipeline right here in Vancouver. So I think this is just one moment. I ask you to all go back after we're here today and communicate with your friends and with your neighbors and with your allies and your community and even the people who disagree with you, and ask them all to be part of this conversation. Let's look at this as just one little moment in time, this rally here, this demonstration outside the Chinese Consulate, and let's all make this part of an ongoing conversation with the global community to move towards climate justice. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass the microphone over now to a friend, Maya, from the Occupy Vancouver movement.